Hello, everybody. Chris Miles here, cash flow expert, anti-financial advisor. Hey, excited for you guys to be here for this Cash Flow Secrets Masterclass today. I know everybody's starting to jump on here live, as they start to come in from YouTube, from LinkedIn, Facebook, and I think that's all. I think just those four different channels. So definitely excited to have you guys here today because, I was really thinking about what to do, right? Because often you hear me do classes about passive income or max ROI infinite banking or that no BS infinite banking type of strategy we do, right? But I remember as I was talking with some of my team members, I thought, I see what's kind of going on. I have this feeling that maybe you might be struggling right now. Like as inflation's going up, interest rates have been going up, everything else. And now we're moving to holiday season. This is usually the time that you feel the most scarcity, isn't it? Like the time you feel the most fear. It's good time. It's that joyous time, the great time of year. So you're thankful for what you have, but you would like to have more to be thankful for, right? So that's where I really want to go into with these cash flow secrets is really to dive in and help you find and free up money now. So I'm going to actually pull open. I got a nice little PowerPoint for you, of course, but don't worry. This is not the typical PowerPoint that just sucks. So this is just kind of keep me on track to make sure we're doing this right. So I'm going to talk about these cash flow secrets. These are things that absolutely do work, have been proven to work, and in fact, helped our clients free up or increase their cash flow by at least $300 million in the last 13, really going on about 14 years. So this is like the real crux of stuff that I don't often teach publicly, and I want to give this to you guys now. So here's the big thing for you is that if I could really show you how you can free up another 300 to 500 a month without a lot of time, a lot of money. In fact, many times you can do this without any money out of pocket. You don't have to start a new business, that claims passive income, but really just getting a part-time job. So nothing like to tell you, hey, just work harder. And it doesn't require a lot of financial training. You don't have to be a financial genius to do this. If you're looking to find a way to free up another 300 to 500 a month, just like hundreds of my clients and I've already done over the last 14 years, if that's what you want to see done, then hang in there because that's exactly what it is. Like I said, I mentioned our clients, $300 million, more than $300 million in the last 14 years. Our average client finds just $34,000 in the first year alone. Much of that is not passive income. Although a lot of our clients more recently, it's been passive income related. But many, many times, many of the experiences our clients have had no money freed up at all, no money in investing that they've been able to do this. So now, like I said, this is something I've actually learned from my own experience. Like I'm not coming from a place of judgment when we're talking about how to find money and how to do this. This is actually from my own personal experience. In the last recession, the Great Recession that we had 15 years ago, I actually was in the hole by $16,000 a month. Guys, that means like I was making $5,000 or $6,000 a month, but between my business and my personal life, I was spending about $21,000, $22,000 a month. So I was in the hole $16,000 a month, short every month that much, with collector calls coming in left and right, feeling like a fraud because I was the guy that had actually retired when I was 28. Now I was back in the rat race, telling people, hey, here's how you get out of the rat race, but I was back in it myself. And so at that time, I started changing the tune of what I was teaching. I stopped teaching people how to get out of the rat race, but instead how to do what everybody kept asking me during the last recession, which was, Chris, I would love to be able to work with you guys, but I don't have the money. Like, I don't know where to find the money. And I knew in the back of my head, I wouldn't say this out loud. I wouldn't tell them, hey, I'm over $1 million in debt. I'm short 16,000 a month. Please hire me. I wouldn't say that. So instead I would say, well, if I can help you find the money, would you then hire us? And people said, well, of course. Yeah. If you can help me find the money, I'll hire you with that money. And that's exactly what we did. In fact, it blew up our company years later where, even Wealth Factory, if you guys ever heard of Wealth Factory, that was actually really that company came out of bankruptcy pretty much with these strategies that we taught our clients and the company boomed from there. So this is something that's really big. Here's a cool thing. Everybody watching this right now, and even those of you watching the recording in the future, right? Everybody watching this right now will get a cash flow optimizer so that you can actually track some of these strategies that we're talking about here today. But here's the problem, guys. Here's what I see is really the problem right now is that, we got, like I mentioned, interest rates are just going skyrocket, going crazy right now. They've kind of settled a little bit lately, but still, they're still much, much higher than we're all used to. We've also got inflation that's outpacing anything that you're getting raised at work. So even though you might get a raise at work, it doesn't do jack squat against the inflation that you have to keep paying at the grocery store, at the gas pumps, or anywhere else. You are basically losing more money every single month or year because you can't even keep up with it. And so what's the solution? You're going to live on rice and beans a little bit longer. You want to start scrimping and saving. And I saw a meme just the other day where it showed planes, trains, and automobiles, that where John Candy's driving that car is basically just destroyed, right? Worse than the Tommy Boy car. And it basically was showing like, the car that Dave Ramsey says I can afford now, right? Because of inflation. I mean, that's what we're dealing with today, and the problem is that the less cash flow you have, the more stress it is. And when I talk about cash flow, like I mentioned right here, I have cash flow equals freedom on my shirt. When I talk about cash flow, I mean, how much more money do you have left at the end of the month? After you've paid all your bills and you've done everything, how much money is left over to give you some freedom? So if you have more income than expenses, you're feeling pretty good. But when it's reversed, you have more expenses than income, you're not feeling so good. That's where the stress happens. And I want you to just kind of close your eyes for a minute and just think about this, right? Just imagine and go with me. I know I can't see you. I'm in fact, not just because I have my eyes closed. Okay. I can't see you because you're on the other side of your computer screen. I'm not creepy like that. But close your eyes and just imagine for a moment that all of a sudden you're in your current financial situation. However you're able to pay bills, good or bad or not. I want you to imagine right now, what would happen if all of a sudden your expenses went up another $2,000 a month? What would you be feeling right now? And feel free to put that in the chat, if you want to type the emotions or feelings or the things they have. Many people will say, oh, I'm feeling stressed. Oh, I can't even breathe. Like it's harder to breathe right now, right? You're just feeling that pressure. It's stressful, right? Now erase that, get that out of your mind and reverse it. What if you had just another extra $2,000 a month in your life? No matter what your income is, I don't care if you're making 500, 1,000, 500,000 or a million a year. If you had another $2,000 a month, how does that feel now for you? What kind of things can you now do that you couldn't do before? What would you start spending your time doing? How would that feel now? Type that in the chat if you have some thoughts there. I'll see those chats later. But that right there, guys, you can open your eyes now. But that's what it really is all about. It's not about how much money you really have in the bank. And that helps a little bit. But isn't it really about how much more money is coming in every month than what's going out? Unfortunately, you got a lot of people telling you, you just got to get tighter, get leaner, right? Just spend less money. Just don't have any fun. Don't enjoy life at all. Which, is that really a life that you want to live? So that's the kind of thing we want you to do. And that's the kind of scarcity we want to go away from. Scarcity is it's the biggest destroyer of wealth, right? Those fears, those feeling of limitations, like you can never have enough. You can never, get out of debt fast enough and things like that. That's the kind of scarcity we will need to overcome if you want to be financially free. And it's not just about you, is it? Because what you're doing right now affects more than you. It affects your family, it affects your spouse, it affects your children, and you create a legacy of scarcity if you're not careful. If you don't stop this right now, this passes on from generation to generation, maybe like it passed on to you from your parents. Because I know with my parents, same thing. They taught me great values. When it came to money, there was never enough. We can't afford it. Money doesn't grow on trees, right? Those are the kind of things that I was raised on. I didn't want to live that kind of life. That's why I wanted to choose something differently from my parents. Unfortunately, even when I became a financial advisor 20 years ago, doing that traditional mainstream crap that we taught, I was also on that same path as my parents, which was try to scrimp and save whatever I could, to spend as little as I could, right? And to pay off my debt and just stuff money in the stock market and gamble it away. That's what I was doing. And that didn't work either. So I want to do something different. In fact, you might even be feeling this about yourself. Is that, like Jerry Seinfeld said to George Costanza about his horrible track record of being a loser, or a good track record of being a loser, depending on how you look at it. He said, if every instinct you have is wrong, well, then the opposite, maybe would that have to be right? So maybe you might be thinking, maybe I just need to do the opposite. Maybe everything I've done hasn't worked up till now. And I'll tell you this, I learned this in ballroom dancing. Many people don't realize this, but I actually used to be a ballroom dancer. I'm not so much anymore. But about 20 years ago, I was one of the nation's top amateur ballroom dancers. Didn't start out that way, but eventually I developed some skills that I got to the point where I thought I was pretty good. In fact, I was even on the world championship dance team here in Utah. Well, long story short, as I'm dancing, one of my instructors, she said, Chris, you're good, but you're not great. She's like, you've worked hard at it, right? You ever heard work harder, right? It's not about working harder, it's about working what? People will say smarter. She's like, well, get this. She said, you've been working hard at this. Like you've been practicing the moves, I can tell, and you're even been smarter about it. You've even learned the steps. You've learned the steps. She's like, but you're not doing it right. She's like, if you just start changing this one thing with your dancing, everything will change. You'll start winning competitions. And so I did. I took her advice and it felt weird at first because it was very different than what I was used to. It was actually using my center of gravity differently. But by doing that one little thing, that little tweak, my moves got sharper, my steps got better. Even though I knew all the steps, I had worked smarter at it. I was working hard at learning those steps over and over, but because I wasn't doing it right, I didn't have the right habits to follow, and as a result, I wasn't getting those better results when I was doing the competitions. Flash forward just months later, I start winning competitions. I actually start elevating, and my improvement skyrocketed, all because I did that one change in my dancing. It's not, guys, it's not about working harder, and it's not even about working smarter. It's about doing it right. When you do it right, that's when the magic happens. And the way to do it right is that cash flow is what creates freedom. It's not about how much money you accumulate and save. It doesn't matter if you try to pay off your house or not. It always comes back to how much income is coming in more than your expenses. That is freedom. That's why it says on my shirt, cash flow equals freedom. It's having more than enough money coming in to pay your bills. It's even cooler if it's passive income coming in to pay your bills so that you're work optional. You work because you want to, not because you have to. I'll tell you from my own personal experience, that is the key. You don't have to have millions saved in the bank. It's about getting your money to work harder for you so you don't have to work so hard for it. That's where that abundance paradigm has come in. You got to think differently. The way to think differently is this. Everybody's telling you that you should be a saver, right? You should save everything you have, spend very little, cut out that latte, don't go out to eat, don't enjoy life at all, don't take all those extra trips and vacations with your family, don't create memories at all, just be cheap, delay your gratification till someday when you actually have some freedom, right? That's what they teach you as a saver mentality. That is scarcity. When you have that almost hoarder mentality where you can never save enough, you can never pay off your debt fast enough, you feel like it's never ever enough, that is still scarcity. You can never be free in scarcity. On the flip side, you can be a spender. And we always, the spenders always get a bad rap, but the spenders, they course easy come, easy go, right? They got to keep generating more income to keep affording their lifestyle. So yes, it seems like they can have fun, but they know that they're in bondage. They know they're trapped too. They're also in scarcity. It's never enough for them. They can never make enough money to suffice for the lifestyle. That's where the steward comes in. And this is why I teach principles first, strategies second, because I'm about to hit the strategies. But if you don't have the right perspective behind this, you'll make the wrong decisions. Just like I didn't have the right quite form that I had in ballroom dancing, that affected my ability to be able to get the better results when I was dancing. Same thing for you. You have to come from an abundant perspective, not the scarcity saver, not the scarcity spender, but the abundant steward, where you try to give your dollars a job. You get them working for you. You don't just pack them away and shove them over there and, almost like a squirrel burying its nuts like the savers do. You don't just pack it away that way. You don't gamble it in stock markets because that's what gamblers do. No, that doesn't create freedom. It's about getting that money to work for you in a way that generates more income, that improves your cash flow every single month. When I say cash flow, I'm not just talking about the income, although that helps, but it also means how we can reduce expenses in a way without reducing your lifestyle. That's what we're going to talk about now. So that perspective is what determines the actions you take. Here's the key perspective I want you to remember. The true key to wealth and freedom is about acceleration, not accumulation. Again, it's not about saving up that money. It's about getting that money to start creating more money for you, right? It's about getting that money to do things for you so you don't have to keep working hard for it, right? That's the key. Acceleration is the key. So let's get into it. Let's talk about these secrets right now. Number one, and this is just a basic thing, and I know everybody talks about this, but I really want to take this from a more abundant perspective, is to track your money. Track your money each and every, not just month, and definitely not every year, right? I want you to do it at least weekly. Track your money. If you're a business owner, you better be tracking your business and in your personal life. Track your money. This means tracking the money that's coming in and the money that's going out. Because in scarcity, a saver will always hyper focus on their expenses. How much are they spending? They'll hyper focus on what they're spending. They'll try to whittle it down as low as they can get it, right? They want to just be cheap as possible. But the spenders, they'll ignore the expenses. They'll just focus on the income. How do I get that income to higher so I can keep spending more money? Look at both sides of the equation. The truth is that a steward actually takes the best of a spender and a saver and puts it into one. Because at least savers are wanting to be wise with their money. They do want to do good things with their money. They just usually will park it somewhere where it doesn't do anything. But spenders, see, they also are at least willing to use money. So they're willing to let go of the money to do something, but unfortunately, it goes into something that's wasteful. It doesn't actually come back to them. Steward says, how can I use this money where it's going to come back to me again? How can I use this money to grow my wealth? How can I use this money to actually multiply and become better? Like the parable of the talents in the Bible, right? How do you go out to go and create more with it and be a wise steward of your money? That's what you want to do when you're tracking your money. Look at it from a stewardship standpoint of how am I doing? How am I watching my money? When you watch your money, you'll lose less of it. Whatever you pay attention to will expand and grow, but whatever you ignore will leave you. If you ignore your spouse, they're going to leave you. You ignore your kids, they're going to leave you, right? You ignore your teeth, they'll leave you. And if you ignore your money, it'll leave you too. That's the key. So start tracking your money. I recommend tools. I mean, use whatever works for you. I like to use Mint because at least with Mint, it's free and it's automated in the sense that it can download all the transactions from my bank. And once I start to teach it and train it about what expenses are, it starts to remember that and do it automatically. Some of you, if you're business owners, if you've used QuickBooks, you probably have noticed that's happening already. You can even teach it and say, hey, if it's coming from this location, the store, always make that a rule. It's always this, right? It's always that category. Well, this is way easier than trying to track it with your own calculator or pen and paper or whatever. It's actually helping you track it, monitor on a day-to-day basis how much you're actually spending, how much money's coming in, so you know what's really happening. And I'll tell you, this is key because whenever I've had clients that told me, especially if they're business owner clients, they'll say, Chris, I'm just too busy to do this kind of thing. I can't do that. Every time I can guarantee you will find at least $500 a month if you say you're too busy to track your money. Minimum $500 a month. So when I say if you can make 300 to 500 a month, this one strategy alone could be the trick for you. Because every time when they start watching their money, when they finally get to do that, they start to realize, oh, wait, I'm spending money here. I'm spending it here. What if I stop spending as much here? For example, I had one woman that was spending $5,600 a month, $5,600 a month eating out. That's every month, not year, month eating out. That was it. She was making $250,000 a year between her and her husband, and yet they couldn't figure out how they're making all this money, but they didn't know where it all went. Well, that's one big place it went. It also went to taxes. We found ways to free up money there too. But again, $5,600 a month, guys. So I got them to cut back to only, quote unquote, $1,000 a month. So we freed up $4,600 a month by not eating out. And actually, as a result, when they started watching it, they started watching what they bought with their groceries. They freed up another couple hundred a month on their grocery bill too. So they actually freed up about $5,000 a month in just food alone. From there, of course, then we started to free up more money with paying off credit cards. We helped them pay free up some money on taxes, and at the end of the year, we freed up over $70,000 a year just by doing this. Really starting with this one thing, tracking your money. By the way, she fought it. It took her a month to actually finally do it, and when she did it, it changed her life. I had another client. She was a graphic designer, kind of an independent contractor. Same thing. She's like, I just can't have time to do it. Got them to track their money. And again, just by tracking their money, they started to be more responsible with it, saved $1,800 a month. Didn't destroy their lifestyle at all, but we freed up $1,800 a month. We also got rid of things like unnecessary subscriptions. Like we got rid of cable, for example. They're paying $300 a month for Xfinity cable. It's like, get rid of that stuff, So they got rid of it. They just got streaming instead. There's a lot of things you can do that are just sometimes just making it easier. Are there things you can do to put things on auto bill pay? Could that save you more money per month? Do they give you a reduction on that? Those kind of things. I had one person that I talked to, it was spending over $1,000 a year in subscriptions alone, just from apps on her phone. And because she forgot about it, she downloaded the app, said I was going to cancel it later, forgot about it. She just went through, canceled them all, freed up over $1,000 a year just doing that alone. So there's a lot of ways, guys, you can actually free up money. Number 2 is sell assets. You can get rid of stuff. My mantra is this: if you're not going to use it, lose it. Donate it, you get the tax write-off. You can give it away to somebody or just throw it away even, or sell it, do something to get rid of those things. This could be a godsend for you, especially if you got a garage you can't even park your car into. If you can't park your car in your garage, there's probably something else that's a big issue here. You might be a hoarder, or at least a level 1 hoarder. Find ways to get rid of your extra crap. This right here, this picture is actually a picture of my dad's basement from about 5 years ago. He did have a flood, so wiped out the bottom section here, but this is a 7-foot ceiling. You can see these stuffed animals are stacked 7 feet high to the ceiling. There's couches buried under here. There's furniture. I mean, there's probably dead animals that I'm sure they probably found later that were under all this stuff, I mean, that's how bad it was. And it wasn't because, the guy loves stuffed animals. It's just because he had a hobby of those crane machines that you see at like Walmart, right? You know those little crane machines you could pick up the stuffed animals? He was a master of the crane machine. And so he would collect all these stuffed animals. He wouldn't sell them. He sold occasion, like you see on the far right hand side. You can kind of see these Harley Davidson pigs over there. He found out later you could actually sell those for like 20 bucks a piece. So he sold them at a neighbor's garage sale. But other than that, he didn't do anything. He just kept it and accumulated it. This is hoarding. This is accumulation that we talk about, not acceleration. He'd been better off buying, getting these toys from there, putting them back in another machine, owning a machine himself, and then let everybody else waste their money on that machine. That's what he probably should have done. That would have been his retirement right there. So again, if you're not going to use it, lose it. Donate it, sell it, give away, or throw it away. That's my mantra there. Insurance. And now insurance, there's a few things you can do here. For example, if you have auto or homeowners insurance, you can be looking at the deductible. Is your deductible so low that really you're paying extra for it? In fact, the most expensive part of your policy is often how low is your deductible. What if you bumped it up to 500 or even $1,000? Now, here's the key. You got to make sure you have at least $1,000 in savings just in case something like that happens. If a car breaks down, you need that $1,000. So having a savings account sometimes can help free up some money just because even though it's sitting there in the savings account, it allows you to have these higher deductibles, which then reduces your premium. Also, duplicate insurances. Do you have like cancer policies through Aflac? Almost anything through Aflac is probably a waste of money, right? Now, of course, if you die of cancer all of a sudden, heaven forbid, and you cancel your Aflac policy because you're like, well, Chris says that those Aflac policies are horrible. Don't sue me for that, okay? I'm just saying that most of the time, if you have life insurance, that can cover just fine for those kind of policies. You have disability, you have health insurance, you have the basic insurances that cover more things, not the very, very specified things like accidental death and dismemberment insurance. I mean, I either have to lose limb or die by accident to even have that money pay out. Yeah, it's cheap, but why pay for something that may never happen? I'm just going to buy plain old life insurance to cover all of that, and health insurance can help with that too, or disability insurance. Those things can save you more money. So look for ways to get rid of insurances that don't really serve you. I even had a client where even though I'm a big fan of whole life policies, he had a whole life policy, but it was a waste of money the way it was set up. And the truth is, he really couldn't afford it anyways. So we said, you know what, listen, for you, let's replace it with a cheap term policy and then free up that $900 a month to get you back on your feet. And then you can always get permanent later on. So we did that. So there's just a lot of different things you can do on the insurance side. Taxes. Now, I'm going to say this as a disclaimer. I am not an accountant. I'm not a CPA, but there are some amazing things you can do if you have a business or even a part-time business or side hustle, which now more and more people have today, that you can actually write off on your tax that you probably never realized was possible. By the way, if you have the option at work to become an independent contractor, you might want to take it instead of being the W-2 employee. Why? Because you can start writing off almost anything. Because the truth is, if you use anything that's justifiable for business, say you use a computer like a laptop, like this, hiding my camera right there, I can write that off through as a business expense, right? Cell phones, if I'm using that for business, I write it off as a business expense. Even if you have a home office, by the way, this is actually in my home that you're seeing here. This studio here is in my house. I can write off a percentage of my mortgage payment. I can write off a percentage of my utilities and my homeowner's insurance because I have a home office. So I can write off a portion of that in addition to already writing off interest on my mortgage anyways. So you get all these additional write-offs and benefits. And as you start to make more and more money, you start to do cool things like the Augusta rule, right? The Augusta rule says you can pay for the use of your home office up to 14 days a year without paying any taxes on that. And why they say 14 days or 2 weeks? The reason they say that is because in Augusta, Georgia, that's where they play the Masters tournament for golf. The IRS made the guidelines, special guidelines that says, listen, as long as you don't rent out your house for more than 14 days a year, hey, you can keep all that money, no taxes on it. You don't have to pay the passive income tax on that rental. Well, what if I just picked one day a month as I made as an admin day in this office, or I did a video shoots, which I do in this office, right? Heck, I could probably even say, what about today where I've been recording and doing, these kind of master classes? Could I write that off? Sure. And then I can actually go and look up a day's use of a hotel facility in the area that might have similar things with AV, right? It can have wireless internet access and everything else. I know, like I looked up in downtown Salt Lake, the Marriott there. I asked them for one day's use of your smallest room, what would you charge with wireless internet and the goods, right? They said water service. I'm like, well, yeah, I drink water. So yes, water service. It was $2,100 a day. I said, great. That means I can pay myself for a day's use less than 2,100 bucks a day, and I still justify it with the IRS to say, hey, I can either use a hotel room or rent a space for this, or I can just do this, right? So if that's say $2,000 for a day times 12 days a year, that's $24,000 I pay myself. That's not taxable. It's a business write-off, but I don't get taxed on it. That's part of the Augusta rule. Again, talk to a CPA because every area is different. I'm not saying $2,000 is your number. I was just giving that as a nice round number as an example. Check with your CPA. Just so you know, most CPAs, and this is a key bonus here, most CPAs don't even understand this rule, don't even want to deal with the rule or understand anything about it. Most accountants are really more passive accountants, as I call them. They're more accountants that really don't, they'll say they're conservative, quote unquote, but the truth is they just don't want to look up all the rules. And so what they'll do is rather than trying to go to the line where the line is with the, with the IRS, they'll say, you know what, I'm just going to stand so far back from that line. I'm going to call myself conservative, but really in truth, I'm just ignorant. I'm just a lazy, ignorant CPA that doesn't want to learn the rules. And sadly, I've had people tell me, Chris, I've learned more about tax strategies from you than I ever did from my accountant for the last 10 years. That is sad. You should have an active, good CPA or accountant. Cool thing is actually with people that are members of our group, clients of ours, they actually get access to some of those people. So anyways, you want to have an active accountant that helps you do that stuff. By the way, you can pay your children. You can pay them actually over $13,000 per year per child, tax-free, no taxes for your minor children at all. And so if you got a lot of kids, I've got 8 between bonus children and my own children. I mean, that's over $100,000 a year we could potentially pay our children for doing tasks in our business. And that's money, of course, you can pay them to say you buy your own clothes. The money that I can't usually write off because I can't write off buying children's clothes. But if I pay them, I get a business expense that's written off, and then I can pay the kids, right? I can have them do that too. So again, lots of strategies. I even mentioned about corporations and whatnot. Cool thing is actually there's a Cashflow Secrets course that I go more into depth with that. And I'm actually going to tell you guys how you can get access to that after this little bit here. So anyways, lots of cool strategies you can do with taxes. Debt. I'm going to put a little time on this one, but debt is a big one, right? Here's my big advice with debt. Don't fear it, but do respect it. Respect that debt can actually be very crippling, can actually destroy your life, financially speaking. That being said, don't fear it because it can either be a help or it can hurt you. It can either help you or hurt you, right? Now, this is the big thing. It's like if you can use debt wisely as a wise steward, debt can be a great thing. But when you're not a wise steward, especially if you're on the spender or the saver end of the spectrum and scarcity, debt's usually not a good thing. Because as a saver, you're just going to freak out for having any kind of debt. As a spender, you're not going to be responsible anyways. You're just going to blow it. So if you're a wise steward, though, debt can be good. But what if you want to pay off debt? How do we determine which debt to actually pay off? And what's the right way to do it? In fact, I just had a conversation before this masterclass here with a guy who said, yeah, I've got all this credit card debt. It's $2,200 a month. I said, here's a strategy you need to learn that will help you do that faster. And by the way, he was actually trying to use his infinite banking policy because the guy that sold him his infinite banking policy was saying, oh, build it up in here. And after many years, then you'll have enough to pay off your debt. I said, dude, I already know that company because we work with that company. We wouldn't use them because they're more expensive. And so you're going to have to save like $1 to only have 70 cents to pay off that debt. Do this instead. So guys, I'm going to show you what I taught him. So let's just say you have 2 different loans here, right? You have a $5,000 loan that's a 4% interest rate that's costing you $500 a month. Say it's a car loan, right? So a nice cheap car loan, cheap interest, I should say, but it's $500 a month. But then you have a credit card at 18%, which is actually, I should probably bump this up over 20 because the average is now 21%. But let's say it's $5,000 you owe at 18%, but you pay $100 a month. Now, if you're looking at these 2 things, and if all you had was $5,000, which one do you think everybody would tell you to pay off? You pay off the 4% auto loan or the 18% credit card? Almost everybody's going to tell you pay off the 18% credit card, aren't they? Right? Pay off the highest interest rate first. In fact, that's what this guy tried to tell me in the last hour. He says, oh, this interest rate's 27.99%. At least he thought it was. He wasn't totally sure after we did the math, found out that the math wasn't adding up to be that high. But he's like, oh, it's 27%, where this other credit card's 11%. Okay, let's just go with that. But here's the thing. If you're looking at a real life scenario, if you had $5,000, which one's going to give you the best breathing room? Which one's going to give you the better flexibility and safety with your cash flow? It's going to be the $500 a month one if you pay that off, right? Because what would you rather pay every month? $500 a month or $100 a month? Obviously, if I had to choose between two, I'm going to pick 100 a month. I don't know about you, but 100 a month is a lot less stressful than 500 a month. Well, but people say, yeah, but what about the interest rate? Here's my advice to you: ignore the interest rate. Don't worry about it. Now, all things being equal, yes, I'll pay off the highest interest rate, but let's be honest with ourselves. The thing that creates the most stress is not the amount that you owe, and it's not really the interest rate, because the interest rate over time doesn't actually do that much, especially on the smaller amounts like this. But what it is, though, is that $500 a month, that's bondage. Here's the cool thing, right? And I remember teaching this to somebody before. I was like, well, think about it. You pay off that $5,000, you have $500 a month. You now have the freedom to do whatever you want with that 500 a month. You could build up savings with it. You could pay off debt with it. You could do both, right? Or even if you have a bad month, what if you have a month where all of a sudden, like maybe you got paid a little bit less? You're definitely gonna be grateful you only paid $100 a month on a credit card versus 500 on an auto loan, right? Same thing if you had a situation where maybe income didn't just go down, but maybe expenses went up. Maybe you had an unexpected expense. Maybe you had to pay to get your car fixed for $1,000. You'd probably much rather be having to pay $100 a month than 500 a month, wouldn't you? That's common sense, guys. That doesn't take a genius to figure out. In fact, the more common sense you apply here, the easier this becomes. It's the people that try to teach you the smart thing about money, as they say, that actually creates all the confusion. Because it's not smart. It's actually dumb. It's actually confusing and conflicting. So that 500 a month, you free that up. Here's the cool thing: that 5,000 you owe on that credit card, even if it's 18%, you could always add that 500 to the $100 a month and have it paid off within a year, anyways. And by the way, you do the math when you put in a calculator. That 18%, if you paid off within a year, is almost negligible. It charges you hardly anything, because if you're paying 600 a month doing that snowball method there, it's paid off quickly, anyways. So when people try to tell me like, "Oh, you got to pay off the highest interest rate," why? Because if you pay it off within a few years, you're not going to be paying that much interest because you're paying it down aggressively. That's the cool thing. But if anything goes wrong, you can always just back it off to that $100 a month, right? That's what the power of this is. Now, I mean, that's that alone. If you got anything else, this should be a huge benefit for you, especially if you've got debt. And if you get that cash flow optimizer, there's a whole section in there that when you put these debts into the balance sheet, it automatically transfers over to this cash flow index tab that will actually help you calculate it for you when you put in the minimum monthly payments. By the way, here's how that cash flow index works. Take the balance, divide by the minimum monthly payment, and you'll get a cash flow index. So that 5,000 divided by 500 is a 10. The other one, the 5,000 divided by 100, is a 50. Here's the key to remember. The cash flow index, you pay off the lowest number first. It's 5 times better to pay off that 10 than it is the 50, right? And this is easy to see from this standpoint. But when you have all these different numbers all over the place, it's much easier to see it in one place to say, oh, if I pay off this one, it's actually going to have a bigger rate of return for me, bigger cash flow return than paying off this other one that will require more money out of pocket to free up the same cash flow. That's the difference. So cool thing is the cash flow optimizer will help you do it. But remember, pay off the lowest cash flow index first, especially if it's below a 40. All right, now here's the next thing. People always talk about their mortgages, right? Some of you, I mean, the majority of Americans right now have a mortgage below the interest rate of 4%. Unless you bought a property in the last year, you have a mortgage interest rate below 4%. So what if you had a $300,000 mortgage at 4% for 30 years? What's the total interest you would end up paying over that 30 years? The answer, $215,000 is what you would end up paying if you just pay the minimum mortgage payment. Now, when I was a mortgage broker about 15, almost 20 years ago now, when I was telling people about this, I would show them that $215,000. I'd say, look, you're almost paying double for your mortgage and interest. So the best thing you can do is pay off this mortgage faster. That's what I would teach. Little did I know, I was just a pawn for the mortgage company, for the banks. Because guess what the banks want me to tell you to do? That very same thing. They want you to pay this off faster because the more money you give them, the more money they can lend out and make more interest on. So they actually love it when you pay it off faster. That's why they give you a lower interest rate for a shorter term loan, because you're paying back more principal, and that's what they love. They get the interest anyways. But for them to get their money back faster, so then they can turn around and invest it faster, acceleration, not accumulation, right? When they do that, they love you. So $215,000 is the total interest you make. Well, let's just say that you did have $300,000 to pay off your mortgage today. Because let's be honest, paying a little extra piddly on your mortgage saves you very little in interest. Like when you run the math, it's really not that significant. The best thing you could possibly do is pay off your mortgage from day one. $300,000 paid off in full. you'll save yourself 215,000 over the next 30 years. But what if you took that 300,000 you could pay off your mortgage from wherever you got it from and instead invested it or even just saved it in a CD? Let's just say you earn 2% on that. So half the interest. Go ahead and type in the chat here, guys. What do you think you'd pay in interest if you, or what you get paid in interest over 30 years on just 2% on 300,000? Remember, 4% on a mortgage on 300,000 mortgage is 215,000. How much do you think you would earn at just 2%, half that rate, if that's all you earned, basically losing in interest? How much do you think you would actually earn in interest over those 30 years? So go ahead and put that in the chat there. All right, you guys ready for the answer? Here it is. I get a lot of times people will give me answers like, oh, 100,000, maybe it's about half. Some people might even say, oh, 150,000. I think it's a little bit better because it compounds. Here's the answer. 2% if you earn on 300,000 over 30 years, 243,000. Remember, it was 215. You just earned $28,000 more with half the interest. And you're probably thinking like, wait, how is that possible? What? By the way, I thought the same thing. Like I actually learned this back in 2008. I've been in the finance industry since 2002, and I had not even understood how this would work with the math. Here's why. One's compounding, the other one's just simple interest. There are two different types of interests that you're either being charged or earning at this point. Compounding interest happens in savings where that money builds upon itself each year and pays you more each year. Simple interest, you've seen this on loans. As you pay it, you think that you're actually like somehow there's some magic formula the bank is doing to screw you over. And you think, oh, they're just charging us all the interest up front, but then they charge us less down the road. No, it's simple interest math. They're not doing anything. Because all it is because you're paying more than the interest only payment. You're paying down the loan balance, which just means that less interest, the same interest rate, but less is being charged in interest because that balance is going down. So less and less is being charged in interest as time goes on. So in one case, one goes down while the other compounds faster and goes up. That's why 2%, half the interest rate, compounding can still beat the amount of interest you pay on the life of that mortgage. Do you realize how significant this is? If not, check this out. If you don't pay it off, let's say you earn the same 4%, you earn the same thing. You put in a CD at 4% for 30 years, earn the same 4%, you make $673,000. Remember, you still have to pay $215,000, but you net about, what is that? $460,000. $460,000 more in interest by earning the same interest rate. 10%, you earn almost $5 million. 15%, you earn almost $20 million. Now you might say, where's 15% interest? Well, guess what? A lot of my real estate's paid more than 15% interest. So is it possible? Yes. That's the thing, guys. Sometimes paying off your debt early, especially if you're a wise steward with your money and you know what to do with it, the thing is you'll realize that some of the biggest money you can lose, the biggest money leak you might have is the money that you could have been making otherwise. I hope you understand just how powerful that really, really is. Okay, sixth point here. I'm going to move on from debt now. I'm just going to say this simply. Stop your 401k, right? Stop it. Just get rid of the 401k. Now, you may not be able to shut it down because you have it, but stop contributing to it. That match doesn't really add that much more. When you do the math, and I have plenty of episodes on my Money Ripples podcast, if you look up a lot of our 401k episodes, the myth of the match, for example, is a popular one. I'm going to have to redo that one on my show again, just because it gets buried back a ways. But you'll find out that match only adds about a 1 to 3% return to what your money is doing. Unfortunately, if you look at Fidelity, their returns on their actual funds that most people pick, like those target date funds, say, target date, 2040 or 2055, they underperform the market by about the same percentage. So you're lucky to get the same market rate that you would just investing your money on your own than you would put in a 401k. So that match really just makes up for bad performance in your crappy 401k. Not to mention they lock it up. Here's the biggest problem that people have is that you're taught to lock your money away into prison. Well, when you lock that money up, it gets stuck in there. You can't do anything. There are people right now, there's articles coming out all the time about people tapping in their 401ks because they need it for emergencies or for unexpected expenses. And what happens? You get slapped with taxes and a 10% penalty when you're trying to get to that money. That's ridiculous. That's not worth it. That's like buying your own car and then your parents tell you when you're an adult saying, give me your car keys. You have to ask for permission to get them. It's dumb. That's what it's like having a 401k. You're treated like a little child who doesn't know how to be a wise steward of your money. Truth is, a lot of people aren't wise stewards of the money. So there's a place for it. But does that have to be you? Do you have to be a victim to that 401k that doesn't do enough? My dad saved up a ton in his 401k and was debt free. And still, when I met with him as a financial advisor, I said, Dad, if you want to retire today in your 60s, you're going to have to die in 5 years because you're going to run out of money. And he did everything right. He was cheap. He saved everything he did. He was like the Dave Ramsey poster child, and yet it wasn't enough. Stop the 401k. That, especially if you have debt, if you have credit card debt, there's definitely no reason to put money in a 401k. Use that money to pay off that debt instead, especially that lower index, because that creates cash flow and freedom today. Now I'm going to take a little pause here because, well, lots of people say, okay, Chris, if I'm not doing my 401k, what would I do then? Where would I put my money? Well, we have one option. We're not focusing on this today, but we just did actually just did a presentation on this last week. You can look up on our YouTube channel. We talk about this max ROI infinite banking. You can actually use that instead. That then gives you the choice to then do whatever you want with it, including investing. And when you invest using this strategy, you can actually make money in two places at the same time. Holy cow. Hold on. My camera just died for a second. Luckily, you don't need me on camera right now, but okay, so I'm back. Anyways, so the max ROI infinite banking, great strategy to use. Not a focus of this one, but again, there's a cash flow secrets course I mentioned. It's going to go a little bit more in depth with this. The last one I'm going to focus on is income, right? Really, I mean, we can only do so much to cut back on expenses, right? And be more efficient with our expenses. And hey, tax savings are great. Paying off debt can be great. We've had lots of clients do that and free up literally thousands a month. But at the end of the day, the thing that's unlimited is your income. So there's two different ways you can create income, right? First one is active income. This is the money you actually have to work for, not your most desirable one, but it's an option. So you can do one of several things. You can get a better job or get a raise. Now, let me pause on this right here. This is a secret that I learned that's helped me to where it demystified income and money. Once I learned this one principle, remember, principles first, strategy second. When I learned this one principle, making money became formulaic. It became predictable. It became easier. And this is it, is that dollars follow value. Dollars follow value. If you want to make more money, stop asking how do I make more money, because it's not going to work. People have asked that forever and been broke still. But instead ask, how can I add more value? How can I solve problems or serve people in a way that money is the natural result? That is the key. How can I serve people, solve problems, or add value in such a way that money is just a natural result or byproduct of that? So for example, I had one client that he took this to heart. I told him, I said, listen, you're making 15 bucks an hour. Go and see what you can do to get a raise. Now, instead of going in and saying, I deserve a raise and being all entitled and annoying, instead of doing that, I said, go and just say, what can I do for you or the company that would merit me a raise, that I would earn a raise? And so his boss said, well, do these few things and we'll give you the raise. A few months later, the boss says, here's your raise. Well, after he did that, he never stopped trying to add value. He realized, I can keep doing this. So he kept going. A few months later, his boss walks by his office and says, how much do we pay you again? He told him how much. He said, I'm going to give you another raise, but no more raises. Well, 10 months go by and a position to get a promotion comes up. He goes in for the interview and they say, listen, you're awesome. We're going to give it to you. We're going to give you that promotion. It was a significant pay increase. And they told him how much they're going to pay him. And he said, nope, I'm not going to do it for that much. They said, what do you mean? This is still more than you're making. I think he bumped up from 15 to 20 bucks an hour. This is going to pay him 25. He said, no, because thing is, like, I've done this and this and this. I've gone above and beyond the call of duty. I've gone the extra mile here and done this. They said, fine. What do you want? He says, I want 27 bucks an hour. So they gave it to him. They said, fine, we can't lose you. You're too valuable to us. 27 bucks an hour. Well, just a few months later, they decided to change some of the things with their benefits, bumped up his raise to over 28 bucks an hour. He went from 15 bucks, 28 bucks an hour in just a year and a half, almost double the income. Guys, it works. By the way, he now works for another company making even more than that. So he's now since moved on because people saw that and wanted it. That's key for you. I had another guy who worked at a big, large corporate bank. Some people might say, well, there's too much red tape with the corporation I work for. This bank has literally hundreds of thousands of employees. He was coming up for a promotion, this other client of mine. And he's like, I really want the promotion. It'll pay me an extra $3,000 or $4,000 a month. And I said, listen, spend the next 3 weeks, go and ask them what you can do to earn that promotion, and then do whatever they say. And so he went to them. They said, well, if you do more of this, you sell more of this kind of product with our bank, we'll definitely consider you. That'll give you a leg up. So he went and he did it. I said, next 3 weeks, even if you have to work an extra hour a day, do it. Just get your numbers up. He did it. They brought him in the office and says, you're going to be the one of two out of over 100 candidates. You'll be one of two that gets this promotion. And they said, you know why we gave it to you? He said, no, we gave it to you because you were the only person that actually asked us what you could do to get a raise. You weren't the highest performer. We had people that performed better than you, but because you asked us, that impressed us and we want to hire you for it. So just by asking the question, and especially asking from a place of non-entitlement, again, that abundance perspective is everything. He was able to jump up, dramatically increase his income by about $40,000 a year. Now, it might be different for you, but that's fine. It still works. It's worked for me time and time again, and it works for you. It's been working since the beginning of time. It will always work. Look for ways to serve people, solve problems, and add value. And that's a great way to lead in this next one about having a side hustle. Don't just get a side hustle just because you want a tax break. Do a side hustle because it's something that actually serves people. It solves a problem, and you enjoy doing it. If it's something you actually enjoy, it's a lot more fun than just feeling like it's overtime job. You might as well just work overtime hours at your own company if that's the case. So find something you can do there. Now, you can do real estate strategies too. There's things like wholesaling, where you can turn around and kind of like broker deals with people on the. It's not a real estate agent, but it kind of does a similar thing that's off the books, so to speak, right? You can do wholesaling. There's fix and flipping. You fix property and flip it. Again, don't do that unless you think you really, really love doing that kind of thing, because it becomes like a job. It's definitely active income, not passive. You can actually buy into a business or franchise. There's ways to do that. Even offering sweat labor into it, sweat equity, so to speak, or even just putting in some money and some sweat labor to make some potentially six-figure incomes that way. Affiliate. We even told our clients recently, said, listen, remember, if you refer us to a client, we'll pay you a thank you fee. Like, we'll pay you a kickback fee. Say, hey, thank you for referring a client to us. Appreciate that. So you can actually create money just by being a good connector, especially if you're already a natural connector anyways. You're always recommending certain companies. Ask them if they'll pay you an affiliate fee. That's something that's actually kind of more almost residual, not quite active, although there's a little bit of active involved. You can actually make good money by being a good referral source for other businesses. And there's things like Airbnb rentals. I know a lot of people come to us asking about that, because there are ways to do it. And there's even ways to do what's called Airbnb arbitrage. You might spend $5,000 furnishing a property that you didn't buy, you just rented, and then turn around and sublease it or subrent it to somebody else. So there's lots of strategies you can do. Let's go into passive income. Now, I'm not going to put a huge emphasis on this because I've done other master classes on this subject, but I'll definitely I'll touch on this for sure. I love this Warren Buffett quote: "You don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you're going to work until you die." So here's some passive income. Now I'm not talking about making money when you sleep like this guy did. This guy was a YouTube streamer, he made $16,000 just getting him filming himself sleeping while letting the other viewers disturb him with loud noises. And so just, he made money just doing that kind of thing. That's not what I mean by making money while you sleep. I mean, getting your money to work harder for you. Crazy thing is, I've had even active real estate investors saying, wait, how'd you do that? Because, I've had clients free up, not just free up money, but sometimes make even well over 10, 20,000 a month passive income by doing these very strategies, right? Now, I kind of alluded to this a little bit, but I want to tie it all together with really the ultimate strategy of helping you create passive income. First is get lean. Just like I mentioned before, these cash flow secrets, getting lean. Make sure that you're spending on productive things and not just blowing your money on things that really don't add life or joy to your life. Get liquid. Get liquid, as I mentioned before, is get your money available and get it out. So I mentioned like getting, stop funding that 401k, right? Stop doing that. You could also have bank savings that's been sitting around. Maybe you have life insurance cash value. Maybe you have some mutual funds or stocks or bonds that are just sitting around and you're wondering if they're going to do anything. Old 401ks or IRAs could be used. Rental properties. This is something that's interesting because people say, well, I have rental properties. Yeah, but what's the return on your equity? Well, I don't know what that is. Well, we better figure that out because you might be losing money in opportunity costs each and every month. I'll show you an example of that with one of my clients here soon. Home equity, could that equity be used to do something better? Even if you have gold, silver, or crypto laying around. We see a lot of people just have like a lot of crypto. They're just waiting for it to come back. Well, guess what? It's kind of come back a little bit. We don't know if it's going to go much higher. It could, but will it? If you've made some of that money back, it might be time to say, maybe we can use that money elsewhere to make more certain, predictable income versus hoping it grows into something someday, right? So here's some passive investments that we talk about a lot of times, like turnkey rentals, where you're not the property manager, somebody else manages the property, you own it and control it. You can lend your money like you're the bank. And right now, lately, guess what? Investors like to pay more money because the banks are charging so much. They might as well pay you more money and have the ease and simplicity of being able to deal with you personally versus dealing with the headache of a bank. So they're willing to pay you double digit returns to borrow money from you. There's funds, different types of funds. I don't mean mutual funds. I mean, like, it could be funds where somebody might be buying multiple assets inside of that fund that they have. It could be like different types of real estate, so it's more diversified. It could be also lending. So if you don't want to just lend to one person, maybe it's a lending fund where they lend to hundreds of people to kind of create more safety with that money and then pay you returns. A lot of our investments that we have for our VIP clients get paid usually at least anywhere from 10 to 12% a year. And sometimes that's even contractual. They'll even say, this is what we will pay you. Apartments, you can invest in apartments, but pool your money together with other investors so you don't have to do it all by yourself. Same thing with self-storage units, which can be sometimes recession resistant. Oil or mineral rights, there's ways to make money in that space. Where oil and gas prices go up, why not make money from that? Partnerships, I have a partnership right now that's paying me about 100 grand a year, and I've only put 350,000 into it so far. So that was a pretty fun partnership. And again, I'm hands off. They're doing the work, they're investing, buying raw land, but I'm getting the benefit of the cash flow from that. So again, so many different things you can do in the investing space and a lot of it can be even backed by real assets like real estate too. So those are just some of those places you can do that. Give you some examples. This guy right here in particular is a client in California that he had 700,000 of equity sitting in his rental property where he was making net $200 a month. Now, his whole goal was he was trying to hyper focus as, like the typical saver mentality. He was thinking, well, I just got to pay off my mortgage. And once the mortgage is paid off, then I'll have $2,400 a month coming in instead of $200 a month because that mortgage payment was $2,200 a month. So he was hyper focusing, like, I got to pay this off. I'll pay it off in 6 years. Well, I told him, I said, listen, you got 700,000 equity in this property. What if you didn't try to pay off the mortgage, instead sold this property, take the equity, invest in other properties? You can do a tax-free transfer over into other properties to where you can make, even if they made 10%, that's 70,000 a year instead of hoping and praying for about 28,000 a year. He's like, no, I can't do that. Like this is my strategy. I'm like, yeah, but again, 70,000 a year today versus 29,000 a year in 6 years from now. And finally it took a few years and he finally said, you know what? Okay, fine. I'm going to do it. He sold the property off, got the equity out, bought 6 different properties. He just sent me an email a few months ago saying, Chris, it's working. My income is now at $8,500 a month. He's over 100 grand a year passive income from that one move by selling his rental property that was just had too much equity, making too little returns for that equity. That's it. And by the way, I'm seeing this more and more lately too. I had another woman that she had about 650,000 total that she could invest with, diversified it between oil investments, some debt funds, a real estate fund, got her income to over 76,000. I think she's about 80,000 a year because she's been reinvesting some of this money. Got to the point where she actually got out of the rat race a few months ago. She's now work optional. She only works because she wants to, but she doesn't even have to show up to work. Her passive income is enough to pay all of her bills. This couple right here, they had a lot of money. They had 5 million sitting in different stocks and whatnot. And so they said, hey, we want to maybe get more of our money out of stocks, diversify a little bit more and do some other things in real estate. Well, here's the crazy thing. This goes back to the cash flow secrets I'm talking about today. We looked at their situation and that cash flow optimizer they filled out and said, wait a minute, actually with some of your loans, we can do a cash out refinance of your mortgage, pay off some of these loans to free up $3,800 a month. Guys, that's over 45 grand a year free up right there. So no money out of pocket, using the equity from their house to free up that money by consolidating their debt. On top of that, they met with one of our CPAs, found out they were actually able to save over $30,000 a year in tax savings. So think of this, guys. No money actually. Oh, I got to say the other one too. The rental. They sold the rental. Very similar to this other guy, right? Sold the rental, improved their cash flow by $2,000 a month because they were losing money every month on the property they had. Moved the equity into a new property to make $2,000 a month. Do the math, guys. That's about 46,000 plus 30,000 plus 24,000. That's 100 grand a year right there. 100 grand a year that they made without investing a single dollar. Then we went to the stocks, which by the way, they still keep some of the stocks, probably more than they should. but they did move some of that money and started to make other money too. So guys are already a couple 100,000 of income. They have the potential to do about 600,000 plus, but so far they're still wanting to stick with that Apple or Google stock, So anyways, that's the cool thing, guys. Like it was literally just using the funds they already had in their possession. So here's the big picture, guys. It's like taking these principles, make sure you have the right perspective. Remember, if it weren't for that guy's perspective changing to be more of a steward versus being the saver, he would have been stuck making maybe 2,400 a month versus 8,500 a month. Those principles lead to different strategies, especially as you start to improve your cash flow. You can actually do like that infinite banking to then do passive investments to get your money to pay you in two places at the same time. And then that just keeps building. It's almost like this huge wheel that keeps growing and growing. It's like that snowball you always hear people talking about where it just gets bigger and bigger until it's like an avalanche, right? That's what you're trying to do with this right here. So here's what you need to do right now. And I'll open up some for questions if you guys have a few questions. We have time, just a few minutes for that. So go ahead and start putting your questions in here. But here's what ultimately needs to change for you is one, you need to be aware of your numbers. You need to start tracking it, which is why we're giving you access to that cash flow optimizer. Two, your mindset needs to change. You need to go away from that accumulation mindset to an acceleration or cash flow mindset. You need to start transitioning away from all the things that they've been teaching you because let's be honest, it hasn't worked. And like Jerry Seinfeld said, if every instinct you have is wrong, then the opposite would have to be right. Well, if everything that financial advisors have been teaching you is wrong, maybe the opposite would be right. And then, of course, this is what's so most important, guys, is be willing to give you and your family the life that you deserve. You have been in bondage for way too long. We can't control what's going on in the markets, right? We can't control what's going on with inflation per se. We can't control what's going on with interest rates. But you know what we can control? Is our here and now, our cash flow, and what we decide to do with our money. We have it in our power to be able to make this work to where you have a much better holiday season versus having a scarcity season going to 2024, wondering how you're going to survive, wondering why why you're making so much money, but wondering where it's all going. You wonder why you're running out of money right now, or you're even charging up credit cards right now. And you may not be wondering. You might know exactly why it's happening, but that needs to stop, guys. You deserve this freedom. You deserve not just the freedom for money, but that money to ultimately give you that time freedom to be able to do what you love with those you love, to have that life that you've always wanted. That is what you have to do. So this is the big thing, guys, is that cash flow is what creates freedom. Now, here's my promise. Like, I know I went through a lot of stuff here and I didn't even cover everything in details because I was trying to cram it all in a short period of time. Cash Flow Secrets is a course that we have that you can actually get to purchase. I'm going to give you guys a special deal because the truth is I gave you probably about half the information from that course already. The course costs $97. Dirt cheap, again, because anybody who does this can find usually at least $300 a month. Heck, I've had people that make less than $2,000 a month free up $350 a month in like overdraft fees and things like that because they started tracking their money and got rid of the overdraft fees. So things like that, guys, like it's not hard to create another 300 to 500 a month using just the very things we talked about today. But because you guys kind of gone through this already, I'm going to do a special little holiday deal right now. And it's really just pretty much to the end of the week. So pretty much Black Friday is going to be the end of it. What we're going to do is that we're going to offer this not for 97, but for you guys, $27. So we'll actually put that into the chat section right here. In fact, I'll just stop sharing this so you guys can even see the chat because I can't see the chat. I'll go to that right now, but you'll see that right there. Link to the course. It says, don't forget to use the discount code. Oh, yes. Thank you. The discount code. What is that? Did you say that up above? Discount code. What is the discount code there? Oh, there it is right there on the screen. Cashflow 27. That makes sense. So put in Cashflow 27 when you go to the checkout so that you don't pay the full 97, you pay just the 27. And the truth is, I just want you guys to be able to review this, go over it, go more in depth. Because like I said, I kind of skimmed over a few of these things. But I hope, in the comments here, did you guys get anything from this? Like, what strategies? Like, was there one strategy in particular you guys said that was really good for me? Go ahead and put that in the chat right now so I can see what really stuck with you guys. I'm going to go back through while you're doing that. I'm going to look at, see if there's any questions here that came through. I know Christopher said, he said, I'd sure feel a lot less stress with an extra 2,000 cash flow every month. Amen to that. I tell you, that's so true. Gabriel said, completely agree on that. I'm guessing that's probably on some of the other things here too. Doc Bob said, can you 1031 using DSCR loans to acquire the replacement properties? That's a bigger question. I'm going to come back to that later, but let me answer that question for you in another time here because I see that there's other questions coming in. I know definitely cash flow versus accumulation. That's definitely a big one for sure. Big thing here for certain. Um, cool. All right. Good to see that you guys had some good stuff here. But I'll just remind you guys again, like again, if you want to have like that, at least if you're really looking for that cash flow to be able to make work for today, um, yes, you can definitely do that. Use that Cashflow 27 at checkout. Doc Bob, I'm going to come back to your question anyways. I'm going to come back to this one too. So can you 1031 using these DSCR loans to acquire replacement properties? Like I said, like it kind of depends on what your situation looks like right now. The truth is you can 1031 pretty easily from other properties, especially if you have loans on them. Sometimes it has to have liked to like properties. So when you do that, we have to make sure that there's still a good equal exchange. But I've there's been some deals that we've had that aren't, you don't have to buy property. Sometimes you can go into a syndication, you can go into like maybe on a multifamily type of deal. Just have to make sure it meets the qualifications. So there's a lot of different ways you can use it. I would just say this is that, case by case, definitely we can look at your situation and see what that's like. By the way, just for those of you that if you have like, maybe with extra equity or money sitting around savings, like you could get liquid and you can have at least 150,000. I would recommend go try out our cash flow calculator. That's on our website. You can also try that out now to see how much passive income you could potentially create in your situation. So Doc Bob, I would definitely say try that if you haven't done that already. Unless I've talked to you before, I don't know if you're the same. I've talked to a lot of Bobs, so I'm not sure if you're the same one. But anyways, yeah, definitely try that cash flow calculator to see what could be done in your situation. Again, you go to, we put that in the comments right there. I'll show that. So if you ever want to do the cash flow calculator, it's just moneyripples.com/cashflow calculator. Or you just go to moneyripples.com and look it up there. But anyways, I'm going to put this right here again, the link to that course. So you see that little bit.ly link that's there in the comments. You can see on Facebook or on YouTube here. Use that discount code cashflow27. And yeah, guys, again, any way we can serve you. I know that a lot of times you don't have the money to work with us one-on-one. And I know I talk with my team about all the time is that our ultimate vision and goal is to get 1,000 of you financially independent by the year 2030. And the best way to do that, guys, is to start here. In fact, if more of my clients really internalize this and focus on this cash flow as well, they would have more cash to invest faster to do that. I'll leave you this one story here. I had one client in particular. He was making 60,000 a year in Manhattan. Now, this was still 10 years ago. So even with inflation, 60,000 is not much. But I'll tell you, this guy had the most abundant attitude ever. I mean, this guy had so much faith that he was willing to even fly his whole team out to get trained on some of these very things we talk about here, just to help them out. And this team were loyal back to him. They really rallied together to make their practice better. And it was amazing is that I told him, I said, listen, like you don't have a lot of cash, but I can tell you're willing to be a wise steward of this money. I said, I bet you're going to start surpassing people that have hundreds of thousands of dollars invest today. Even though you don't have the hundreds of thousands, you will surpass them. And I'll tell you, just 2 years later, I talked to him. He's making 300,000 a year, and he's packing away so much money. He's like trying to get that money saved and then make it work. He is literally in a healthier cash flow position than many of these other people that had hundreds of thousands to start with. All because he focused on the cash flow first. It's not just getting your money to work for you by investing it. It's how much money can you really free up in cash flow to then use to put into better use than just throwing it away in your 401k, but actually putting in investments that are real assets that can grow and appreciate and pay you money at the same time. That right there, that's the big secret, that really, it's not that big of a secret, but it's really the big key that most people miss because they don't have that right steward perspective. So guys, again, I appreciate you being on today. Thank you. Oh, Bob. Okay. Yes, we have spoken. Good to hear from you. Well, I'll email you separately here. So anyways, Gabriel, thank you for tuning in as well. And all the rest of you, thank you for tuning in. Those of you in the future watching this recording, thank you as well. Be sure to reach out to us with any questions that you have and any way we can serve you. Make it a great holiday season. I'm definitely thankful to have you here. Have a great Thanksgiving. And especially as we lead into the Christmas holiday season, definitely make it a great day. We'll see you.